Hey guys, it's Flip, and today I'm going to show you how to change the blades on a Cub Cadet Enduro Series lawn tractor without taking off the deck. So the first thing I'm going to do here is put the mower up on my homemade ramps to give myself more room to work. If you would like to see a video on how I made these, I'll put a link at the end of the video and below in the description. These ramps have detachable steps so I can move them out of the way to give myself more space, and then I use those steps to chock the back wheels to keep the mower in place. But you could use a mower lift or a jack and jack stands, a ceiling hoist, or anything else to get the mower up in the air a little bit just to give yourself some room to work under the deck. However you choose to do it, just make sure it's secure before you start working. And a little checklist of things before you start getting into this. First, make sure your deck is up all the way. That's going to give you the most room to work under the mower. Again, if you're using ramps like me, make sure you chock your wheels for safety. Make sure that your parking brake is engaged. And if you want to be extra cautious, you can pop the boots off of your spark plugs. So the situation is you have a nut that holds the blade onto the spindle, and it takes a 15/16 socket. And the problem is when you turn that nut, the blade spins. So what you have to do is figure out a way to remove that nut and hold the blade in place. So there's a few different ways we can do that. Let's get into them. So the easiest way to do this is with an impact wrench. So for this method, you don't even need to put any type of stopper on the blade. You just hold the blade with a gloved hand and you can just rip that nut right off of there. Then of course you can just use a regular old socket wrench. If you have a torque wrench for putting the nuts back on, you can just use that to remove the nuts. Or if it's pretty stuck, you can use a breaker bar to give yourself some extra leverage. If it's really stuck, you can take a pipe and put that on the end of your breaker bar or your socket wrench, and that'll give you some serious leverage. If the nut is really rusted on and it hasn't been taken off in a while, you can use some PB Blaster and spray that on there, and that should help you get it off. But what you'll see is that if you put these back on properly using a torque wrench and set them to the correct torque, you'll have a lot less problems getting these off down the road, so that's how we're going to do it. So how do you keep those blades from spinning so you can remove that nut? What I see a lot of people doing is just using scrap wood, and they'll stick it up under their deck and try to wedge it in between the blades and the deck to stop those blades. But what I think is easier is just using a C-clamp and a little scrap piece of 2x4. The 2x4 is just so I can clamp this down tight and it won't scratch up the outer part of the deck. And the part of the C-clamp that is under the deck will actually stop that blade from spinning, and you can remove the nut. So from underneath, when you're looking up at this nut, you're going to want to turn it counterclockwise to remove it. And now what you see is I have this C-clamp over here, so when that blade turns, it's going to hit that C-clamp and it's going to hold it in place. So now I can remove this nut. So yesterday, I found out the hard way that I had forgotten this little guy out in the backyard where I had been working on something down in the grass. And let me tell you, when you hit a pry bar with your lawnmower, it'll wake you up a little bit. So you can see on the pry bar here, the blades took off the two prongs here you would use to pry up nails. And I knew it had to do some damage to the blade. And here's what it did. So that's where the pry bar hit right here, and that blade's done. So right now I'm going to run up to the store and get some new blades. Also, while you have your blades off, it's a good time to scrape off any grass that has accumulated under your deck. You can use a putty knife or a 6-in-1 tool like this. Anything like that will work. Just scrape evenly and try not to gouge the deck. Okay, so I picked up a new set of high lift blades. If you're going to replace one, you might as well go ahead and replace both. But the big thing you want to look for when buying replacement blades is that it has the right shaped hole here in the middle so it will fit onto your spindles. Some of the older Cub Cadets have kind of a star-shaped hole in the middle here, and these newer ones have this S-shaped hole. I think they call them the S blades. So that's the big thing you want to look for, is just make sure it has that right shaped hole in the middle. But I will put a link to some replacement blades that will work in the description under the video. Then the other big thing is just to make sure you put these on facing the right direction. You can see underneath that these say grass side, so that is the side that is going to face down and face the grass. So just make sure you put that side down or they won't cut correctly. If you have a torque wrench, which I recommend, and I'll put a link to one of these under the video as well, you should tighten these nuts down to 70 to 90 foot-pounds of torque. If you don't have a torque wrench, then you're just going to have to kind of guess. Just make sure you put them on good and tight, but not too tight to where you can't get them back off.
So you want to put this blade on here where you match up that S pattern with the one on the spindle. Then we're going to put our washer and our nut on here and just hand tighten them. Once you get that hand tightened, you can go ahead and torque that down to the correct torque setting.
So here I'm spinning that blade all the way around so it will hit the C-clamp going clockwise, and then we're just going to tighten it down with our torque wrench. Now I've got my C-clamp switched around to the other side so we can go ahead and install the other blade. So same thing, we're just going to hand tighten it and then we'll torque it down. Again, spin that blade around so it's hitting that clamp going clockwise. Don't forget to take your C-clamp back off. And to clean up that grass you scraped off the deck. Then, however you got your mower up into the air, go ahead and lower it back down to the ground. And that's it. You got your blades back on and you're ready to mow. If this video helped you out, please hit the like button for me and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.